Oh, sorry. Okay. Hi, welcome to Digital Week Online. I'm here with Manohar from CasperLabs. He's the CEO. I thought we would, before we get into what CasperLabs is and the exciting news around the company, Mrinal, I thought you'd maybe talk a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Absolutely, happy to. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us, Digital Week Online. James, always a pleasure to speak with you. About myself, basically a computer scientist. I've been programming since I was 11. Really been fascinated with computers, but actually began my career on Wall Street. So I worked at Bain & Company for about 2.5 years in Boston. Then I worked at PALcapital in private equity and leveraged buyouts, so in Boston. And then spent 5 years at a long-only hedge fund where I was the sector head for technology, media, and telecom. That being said, I've actually been involved in decentralized computing. I left that hedge fund job in 2017 to focus on blockchain exclusively, but I've been involved in distributed computing pretty much my entire adult life. Was an open source contributor to BitTorrent way back in 2002. Hard to imagine it was 19 years ago. And then discovered Bitcoin in 2010, started buying it in 2012. I was an annoying guy in the office telling everyone that they needed to buy this stuff. I'm sure many of them wish they did. And then, just became a serial angel investor in this space, was in the earliest rounds of Ethereum, Blockstack, Basis, Filecoin, Maker, a bunch of things, and really thought there was tremendous opportunity in the market to bring something that was enterprise grade to the blockchain world, and hence co-founded CasperLabs, which is the software company behind the Casper network, which is run out of a nonprofit association in Zug, Switzerland.
That was the legal disclaimer, folks. So, Mrinal, tell us about Casper. Why is Casper different than the other platforms that are out there today?
Casper is different because I think it solves three things that have prevented mass adoption, especially by enterprise. So the first thing is scaling without sacrifice. So, the Bitcoin and Ethereum networks are highly secure and highly decentralized, and every attempt to scale networks has come with some sacrifice to these, to decentralization or security, usually both. Now, I'm not going to name protocols in particular, but I'll give you basic ideas. So there's a bunch of protocols that have DPoS, right? So they're delegated proof of stake systems. These aren't really fully decentralized. There are protocols out there that are permissioned. There are protocols out there that have only statistical security, meaning they only sample a random set of the validators as opposed to the entire set. Our system does not sacrifice decentralization or security in any way. We have the same level of security that Nakamoto consensus gives you, but we'll still be a couple of orders of magnitude faster than the current proof of work networks. And this is important because an enterprise is not going to put critical infrastructure on a system that isn't fully decentralized and fully secure. They're not, if they're, they'd rather just run a private network than go on someone else's permissioned network. So that's one. The second thing is we've made an enterprise grade product that fits in with the way enterprises are used to building software. Businesses are not going to change their business model to adopt the technology. The technology has to adopt to people's business models. This is AWS does that, Azure does that, and that's why they've been smashing successes. So what does that come down to? It's not a silver bullet, but there's a list of things. So one, we support open programming standards. So, we support Rust, TypeScript, AssemblyScript. You don't need to hire a Solidity developer or any specific programming language to use our system. Your existing developers can do it. And we'll really support any language out there over time. Second, we have continuous integration and continuous deployment built right into our node. So you can monitor, test your code very, very easily on our system, which you can't really do on other blockchains. And then we have a bunch of UX features that allow enterprises to create real enterprise-grade products. So instead of going over all 10 of them, let me give one example. So right now in blockchains, sender always pays the underlying gas fee. I don't know why that is, and I don't know why that hasn't been expanded. But there are many cases where maybe the receiver should pay. Let me give you an example. Say you wanted to create an immutable resume verification system, and you wanted Harvard to, basically send a message saying, yep, this guy actually did attend this school. Now, it's weird to expect them to also pay the underlying gas to send you information. In fact, maybe you should be rewarding them in some way. it's already tough to get an institution to engage with blockchain. Now, in our system, receiver could pay the transaction fee or even tack on a reward. The owner of the dApp could pay the transaction fee, the sender could pay it, or you could split it three ways. We have Turing complete payment code. So, blockchain is going to be more successful if it's below the surface and people don't have to interact with wallets and all of that. And we've enabled that. And then finally, the third thing that's really stopped mass adoption is the fact that people are kind of forced into this false dichotomy where you either go with a private offering like Hyperledger or Corda, or you have to 100% go with a public offering. There's so many cases where you might want a hybrid. For example, let's take IPB, who we're working with. They manage a patent database and the licensing and royalties around patents. Now, what someone paid for it, what the terms of that contract are, probably want to keep that private. But who actually owns a patent and the licenses on it? You probably want to use a public network so that that chain of information is absolutely secure and immutable. And in our system, you can create a hybrid solution, get all the benefits of the public chain, being the trust and the immutability. But if there's things that you don't want to expose, but retain the data structures of a blockchain, you can. And we think this is going to really help drive enterprise adoption. That's it. Those three problems that we're trying to solve.
So the mainnet is launching soon, right?
Before the end of the month. That's right.
And do you have a vision of which use cases will come up quickest, where people can actually interact with Casper?
Yeah, some of the quickest ones are really track and trace. Like the patent management system we talked about. But this could also apply to music. It could apply to legal briefs. It could apply to all sorts of things where digital immutability of an asset is really, really valuable. So I see that as being there. Of course, DeFi, there's tons of yield farms and DEXs that are already in touch with us, already building Casper implementations. It's kind of really interesting out there right now. We are in touch with a few NFT players. So there will be, and one pretty cool one, we've not announced it yet, but think there's going to be some pretty cool Hollywood movie NFTs on the Casper network. And then a lot of supply chain. So we'll be announcing the name soon, but we're speaking with this multi-billion-dollar supply chain management software company that does supply chain for aerospace and medical devices. As you can imagine, a counterfeit product in either of those industries can have life-altering or, in fact, life-ending consequences. And so the amount of manual overhead to track and trace and make sure that there's accountability against counterfeits is, as you can imagine, extremely expensive. Okay. A lot of this can be solved if you have an immutable ledger that is actually independent and public, to ensure that tracing of these objects is done in a proper way, and also the accountability is there because you can't go back and change the records, which is the issue right now. And so the myriad of use cases, we're Turing complete, we're really agnostic, but just given who we're speaking with, these call it about 4 areas of use cases are the ones that should happen fastest. There's a lot of other stuff we're working on, but that'll probably take a little longer. They're also a little more complicated.
So how long have you been with CasperLabs or Casper Network?
Well, so, as one of the co-founders right from the beginning.
So from 2 years?
Yeah, so we incorporated the first subsidiary on Halloween of 2018. Mm-hmm. So, it's been about 2.5 years. But the idea to build this, I probably was thinking about this 6-7 months before, but just hadn't figured out how exactly would go about it. And then,
and how has the environment of trying to serve enterprises with blockchain, how's the environment changed from Halloween 2018 to now?
It's improved greatly, and I'd say the primary thing is the disinterest has gone away. Like, enterprises were just disinterested; they didn't want to talk at all. Now I think there is there is a will to use blockchain technologies, but enterprises just, what they need is a partner who can hold their hand and really walk them through how to use the architecture. If you think about it, and this is a mistake I think a lot of people have done while trying to go after enterprise, is you have to realize that with enterprises, you're just going to be a small part of what is a very, very large and very, very complex tech stack. And trying to go blockchain everything is just not going to work. There's just going to be you're basically banging up against a wall. What should happen is get an MVP done at a small level of the tech stack, and also use blockchain for what it's good for. It's good for trust, it's good for immutability, and it's good for transfer. But don't try to use it for absolutely everything. I think that approach is what's caused little less adoption. But enterprises are much more open to the technology right now than they were, when we started this journey.
And do you think we're at a point now where the entrance of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies into corporate America is making a difference yet, or you think we're still too early?
It's making a difference, but I think we, stated another way, we haven't seen anything yet. Right. Like it's started. It's definitely started. But if people are asking me, are we at the really early part of the adoption curve, or are we already here? We're at the really, really early part. But we're there. I don't think we were there actually 2 years ago. I mean, sure, there are one or two people experimenting with this technology, but real adoption was pretty much zero, almost. We're beginning to see that, and especially with companies putting these assets on their balance sheet, which has been really, really interesting. MicroStrategy and Tesla, of course, being early pioneers.
So interesting. And do you find now, how do you sell to a corporation? Are you going to them with a sales force? Have you built a corporate setting, or are you expecting people to come to you?
We're reaching out, but the way we've done it is we have a very large advisory program. We have about 55 to 60 advisors in that program, and many of them, yourself included, are very well connected. Know a lot of people, and people who are able to actually understand the value proposition of blockchain. And so really it's been outreach that way. Today, we will consider a sales force in the future, but right now, actually, our biggest concern is hiring devs fast enough to meet with the demand. Right now, our pipeline is too big, but we cannot serve it right now. And so, we're actually hiring really aggressively. And so, once we have the team to support it, we will consider augmenting with a sales force as well.
Interesting. And, you talked about having a community. I've always looked at the size of the community and the engagement of the community in crypto is really the definition of the value of the network. So can you talk to me a little bit about the different communities that you've been trying to form? Because I think you guys have done an amazing job on several fronts.
Sure. So I'll split this into a few pieces. So one is, just our standard Telegram and WeChat communities. We're one of the largest in the space. We have 17,000 people in just our main Telegram channel, which is bigger than a lot of the large protocols out there. But we have several other, we have a Vietnamese channel with 2,000 people in it. We have a Korea channel with over 1,000 people in it. So, we have a lot of language specific channels as well. And so we're probably one of the most followed ones out there. In addition, WeChat, our Chinese community is really, really massive. It's 10,000 plus right now, I believe. I have to come back with a particular number. So just standard outreach, that's pretty large. And our mailing list is 200,000 people right now. That's just people who signed up to be on our mailing list. But on the other front, we have a Discord community, which is very developer focused. And, we have multi-thousand members there as well, which is really, really interesting. Usually those groups tend to be smaller, but this one's really big, a lot of developer engagement. And we just recently announced a developer DAO. It's a nonprofit based out of Switzerland, unaffiliated with us. It's an arm's length relationship, but we are one of their first grantors, and they have 16% of supply over the next 5-6 years to give out as grants to developers. And they're seeing dozens of applications coming in. And so we're really excited about some of the stuff that's coming in. But really, this is a fully decentralized protocol, a fully decentralized project. The community is going to own and run the network going forward. And so we've just put the pieces in place to make sure that, there's a grant system to ensure people can easily get onboarded and build interesting things.
Right. And you're right now in the middle of doing your initial coin offering, right? What's that experience been like?
Hectic, to say the least. Yeah, we're on CoinList. Look, it's hectic as is any public offering, but they've been wonderful, wonderful partners, and so I couldn't say more nice things about them. I actually probably owe them an apology because we have really slammed them. They've never, the level of demand for the sale is higher than any they've seen. We're really humbled by that. Thanks to the community out there for your interest. It really humbles us, and we hope we don't let you down. But it's been a hectic experience, and the level of interest really,
it's astounding. It's astounding.
It's been emotional. Yeah.
So congratulations on that. And you've been involved in the game for a while. Is it getting easier to access the public and to launch a platform? Is the community forming and helping each other?
Yes, it is certainly getting easier. But I will say one thing. There is one trend that I think is negative versus before. And what I'd say is, I do think people were a little more collaborative before. Like, there was a lot more research between protocols, etc. Now, we, of course, partnered with Cardinal Cryptography. Everything we publish is open source. So anyone wants to use any of our work, absolutely do it. But I do think one thing that's happened is there's been a little bit of tribalism within the industry that started. We are Tezos guys, we are Solana guys. And I'm like, no, we're all people trying to create a decentralized compute infrastructure. And I think that's gotten a little more. That being said, the speed at which communities form and the speed at which people know about what's happening in the space has greatly accelerated. Things can turn on a dime right now. So that all that's been positive. All the enterprise interest has been positive. There's a little bit of tribalism, but I think that does happen. As the industry matures, I think there'll be less of it.
And as a company that would be considering using a blockchain solution, do I need to pick one? Do I need to pick one of those tribes, or do you see the platforms working together in the future?
Ideally, you shouldn't have to. I do think what's happening in the market, if you see, is most are moving towards a WebAssembly-based VM, which should create a lot more cross-compatibility. So ideally, over time, you can be chain agnostic and switch. And I think the way it's going to come about is the standardization, where if everyone's basically building a WebAssembly-based system, there's inherent portability relative to it's like Azure and AWS. Switching between the two is fairly straightforward now because there's a lot of standardization between the platforms. It's not you flick one switch. It's maybe you flick 10 switches. But it's 10 switches. You don't have to rebuild the entire box.
Right. Interesting. And do you see people actually interacting with the Casper token, or do you think that ends up being something that sits really in corporate treasuries and involved with industrial transactions?
No, not at all. I think people will all the time because it works just like ETH does on Ethereum, except with the added fact that we're a pure proof of stake network. So it's also the staking token that's going to give all the underlying security to the network. So basically, anyone who holds this and either sets up their own node or to be a validator or delegates to a node is an active participant in the network. You are basically part of the infrastructure of the network. And we purposely built it this way because, a good quote I like to make is, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go somewhere far, go together. And, we definitely want to do the latter. So the more participation people can have in the network, the better. We, like recently on our CoinList sale, in fact, just to give you an example of how seriously we take this, because of the demand, we drastically lowered caps on all three options. And we did that because, well, first of all, we didn't know there was going to be this much demand. But now that we know, this gives a chance to, do right by the community, but also decentralize the network even further. We don't have whales in our system. no one on the team or anyone on the founding team, no one has even 1% of tokens or anything like that. And we've structured it that way right from the beginning because we truly believe we're pretty purist when it comes to decentralization.
Cool. So we're coming to the end. So I'd love you to tell me, looking forward for the next 6, 12, 18 months, what do you see for Casper?
Yeah, our two biggest priorities are, one, on the enterprise side, work hard on really hiring out the team and ensuring that we can make these integrations successful. We already have a team, but again, the demands vastly exceeded our capabilities right now, and we need to ensure that we do that. So that's on the enterprise adoption side. On the core protocol side, the key areas of research are to further improve upon the underlying upgradability of the blockchain. We'd like it ideally to look just like Linux or Windows and be easily upgradable. Of course, via consensus, right? Validators choose whether they want to take an upgrade or not. No, there's no forcing authority. But what we can do around those schematics is going to be a major area of research for us. And the second is sharding and sidechains and how we ensure composability across that. I think that's a problem that's not really been solved. Some claim they do, but you'd have won a Turing Prize if you had. So those are our main areas of focus and for the next 12 to 18 months.
All right, Mrinal, thank you so much for coming. I wish you fantastic luck over the next month and year, and we're all excited about the launch of Casper Network. Good luck.
Thank you, James. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Bye.